Hello and welcome to Gatherverse Book Summit. And what an amazing fireside chat we had with Grant. And thank you to 5-Star BDM for also sponsoring this event. And also big thank you to Pico as well for sponsoring us. But we have a fantastic roundtable discussion right now with so many amazing panelists here. And it's great to see some familiar faces as well. On this roundtable discussion, we're going to be speaking about when stories leave home, why our stories matter in the world. Couldn't agree more. So what we're going to do, panelists, is we're going to do a quick introduction from each of yourselves, and then we're going to get into the discussion and the questions for this roundtable. So we're going to start to my right-hand side or left-hand side, whichever is on the screen. And we're going to start with the Director of Communications at Gatherverse. It is Lynn. Welcome, Lynn, and good to see you.
Good to see you too. Greetings, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, Gatherverse Book Summit. And of course, this is our last our panel for 2025. So I'm very, very excited about that. And just want to welcome everyone as well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Lynn, and I'm glad that you're also able to join us as well, unlike the technical difficulties that have been going on behind the scenes, of course. Tracy, welcome. Please introduce yourself, and it's great to have you with us at Gatherverse.
Thanks for having me here. I'm really passionate about this topic, and I look forward to our discussion. I'm Tracy McDonald. I'm coming to you from Arlington, Virginia, and I am a professional speaker, a consultant in the risk and fraud area, and a blogger and writer.
Incredible, Tracy. So many different careers there, but it's great to have you with us.
Thanks.
Up next, we have Dr. Tammy Francis. So please tell us who you are, Dr. Francis.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Tammy Francis, better known as Dr. Tammy in the internet streets and around the world. I help you move in the direction of more and prepare for what's next through books, travel, strategy on a platter of tech. Love it through all threads. I am your strategist, and I am so happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
I can't wait for you to just strategize on this roundtable discussion, Dr. Tammy Francis. James, good to see you again as well. Please tell the people who you are who don't know you, James.
Yeah, Russell, thanks. It's great to see you again. Good to see you again. Hey, everybody. So my name is, I'm James Welniak, and I am the Director of Mindfulness and Focus with CUP Advisory. I'm also the face of screen addiction, recovery, and prevention. And this was me in 2023. And I had the privilege of meeting a best-selling author, since we're talking about books, Amy Blankston. I was able to share the story, a miracle story, guys, of Amy Blankston, the author, how when I was coming back to digital work after 2 months after suicidal thoughts, this physical book got in between me and my screen time to create MRI, which is my product, which measures your relationship with information in order to manifest the dreams of your life. So I'm great to be here today. Thanks, Russell. I know I've seen you. I feel like I know you. I always feel this is beautiful because this is a human connection, but we are using artificial. So this is a beautiful way to connect around the world. Thank you.
Appreciate you, James. And at this rate, you'll be moving into Gatherverse. At this rate,
I love it. And guys, I would love to share the. So Amy Blankston actually recorded our 15-minute. I talked to her for an hour. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love to share it in the chat. It's a beautiful story.
We'll get around to that in a minute, James. We've got to go through the introductions first, but we'll head back over to you. All right, James?
Awesome.
Thank you, James. Chantal, please introduce yourself and welcome.
Love the enthusiasm, James. Good to have you.
Oh, love you too. Love you guys. I love the girls. Sorry, Russell.
Oh, what? Now you just rejected me. Come on. I'm joking.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chantal Buerta. I am a South African, but I'm also a global nomadic traveler. I call myself a slow mad because I travel slowly. I'm on the beautiful island of Mauritius at the moment. I help leaders build integrity from the inside out. I call myself an identity architect because the way we see ourselves determines how we show up, How we show up determines the results we get. I've also just published my first book. Second book is also out.
Congratulations.
Of course, Book Summit is why I'm here. Stories matter, right?
Absolutely, Chantal. And I guess that's finished your introduction. So awesome. Double thumbs up. Thank you for joining us, Chantal. It's great to have you with us. Over to you, Sarah. Please introduce yourself. And I don't know if this is your first time at Gatherverse, so welcome to Gatherverse. And please introduce who you are.
Thank you. Yes, it is my first time. Lucky to be here.
Oh, wow.
My name is Sarah Aviram. I am an author and speaker. I'm working on my second book right now about my experience living and working across 12 countries in 12 months. So I talk about what travel can teach us about our ability to adapt, to be more resilient, and to manage through change.
Wow. I don't even know where to begin on that. 12 countries in 12 months is crazy. Thank you for joining us, Sarah. I'm sure we'll get more into that as we go through the questions. Jennifer, please introduce yourself, and also welcome to Gatherverse as well. Oh, you want to unmute your microphone, Jennifer? There's like a little microphone button down the bottom. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry
welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm Jennifer Jank. I go by JJ because there are so many Jennifers that I was in class with. I'm reaching out from Long Beach, California. I too recently had a book published. I'm a productivity consultant in addition to being an author and speaker. And I really work with business leaders to help them get their stuff done so that they can then have a fulfilling and wonderful life outside the business they love.
By the way, I love the title. Double thumbs up on the title. Incredible. And last but not least, Anne, it's good to see you once again as well. Please tell the people who you are who don't know you, Anne.
Awesome, Russell. Lovely to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Anne Faye. I'm from Singapore, sunny island. It's now 1:30 a.m., but so happy to be here. So I run the School of Leadership. I'm very passionate about transforming bosses from hell to bosses from heaven. And fun fact, so since everyone's trying that book, I've co-written a couple of books. So this one hit Amazon #1. It's called Venus Rising, The Phoenix Awakens. So it's inspiring stories about women entrepreneurs, 23 of them to be exact. So I'm just excited to hear everyone's story tonight and looking forward to the panel. Thank you.
Wow, so many books released in this panel. It's amazing, absolutely incredible. Thank you for joining us, Anne. And let's get into some of these discussions because there's a lot to discuss and little time. Actually, sorry, before we do, I forgot to introduce myself. Apologies. My name is Russell. I am the Gatherverse Global Affairs Director at Gatherverse. Also, I'm co-founder of Just Verify on building the trust infrastructure for AI. So we focus a bit on the verification and the verifiability and the trustworthiness of AI models to ensure the responsible adoption across the world, basically. And yeah, basically we build an entire trust infrastructure for that in a nutshell. So, all right, let's get into the questions because we've got so many questions to ask and answer. So let's get straight into it, shall we? So question 1, what makes a story ready to travel beyond its home? Very interesting question. So Lynn, since you are sitting right next to me, of course, and you're also a part of the Gatherverse team as well, why don't you kickstart us off?
You know, Russell, I'm so excited that we even have authors here. And I'm also thinking about being an author after being in this room with this amazing authors here. What makes a story travel beyond home? I've been here at Gatherverse and I've listened to many stories from different people from different parts of the world. We have someone like Anne, who is from Singapore. I'm from Africa. Some of you are from USA. What makes our stories travel home, beyond our home? It's a platform like Gatherverse. Can I just say that? It's a platform like Gatherverse where people are brought in together to share their stories. And my other thing would be authenticity. Just be authentic with your story. don't try to. I believe from the last panel that there was an introduction of AI and AI telling its own narratives. But in this case, I really believe the authenticity of our own stories without any delusion or any addition, that is what makes your story travel beyond home. Yes.
No, it's a very interesting point. And, also when we're talking about, when we talk about trust as well, and when it comes to trusting AI to do our books on our behalf, or trusting what an author saying in the book, etc. It's extremely important that we do work on the trust side of things in terms of looking what's inside the book. How authentic is it? Is it AI generated? Is it not? And also discovering that and figuring that out. And as I like to say, verifying basically if it's AI or not, in a nutshell, right? Because these days is so much blends together into one that we don't know what's real and what isn't. So when it comes to books as well, we need to be able to figure out what is real and what isn't a real book, and being able to know what is AI generated and what isn't. So Tracy, this brings me on to yourself. What, from your point of view and for your lens, what makes a story ready to travel beyond your home, Tracy?
Well, I am a foreign service spouse, and we've lived overseas for 12 years and just returned to America. So I can say that I've been in many countries, like Anne and Sarah, traveled around. And the biggest thing I can say is when you speak from the heart, like Lynn said, when you're authentic, AI cannot replace our human experience and the human kindred spirit connection that we provide when we tell our stories. A machine cannot replicate joy and loss and love and those powerful soul emotions that we emit and that we inject into our stories. I think every author injects a bit of their self, whether it's not just their voice, but a bit of their culture as well when they tell stories. So I think as long as you're coming from a point of trying to share your true story with someone who's ready to receive it, then it is ready, even if it's not well polished. I think if the message is there and you're just trying to communicate with others, I find it fascinating in every country I'm in. When you ask someone, who are you, when you meet them for the first time, they tell you a bit of a story of who they see themselves and what their origins are and where they're from. So I really think the story is about the human connection.
I do agree. And when we're talking about authorship, right, it's kind of like you have two sides to this. Well, obviously this is just from my perspective and my lens. I'm not an author, just FYI. So I'm not 100% certified or qualified to discuss everything, but I will try anyway. But on the one side you have the authorship when it comes to the book itself, right, when it comes to the text. But then you also have the other side when it comes to like the audiobooks, right? Or when you're reading I don't know, maybe if you watch it on a YouTube video. I see people watch them on YouTube videos and listen along and reading the words at the bottom. So when we're talking about the distribution of the books, for example, right, in the authorship and what you're telling your story, it's kind of like, can AI, like let's say AI can replicate when it comes to the text side of things, but when it comes to the audio and video side of things, that potentially gets a little bit harder, right? Because LLMs are large language models. So the language model and foundation of this is that it turns tokens into text, right? In a nutshell. So when we're thinking of that, is from your lens, Tracy, and we'll bring you into this quickly as well, do you think when it comes to text, audio, and video, do you think that when it comes from a book, right, do you think the authenticity is there when it comes to the audio and video side of things? Or do you just think it's just from the text side of things? Or actually not even at all?
That's a very interesting question. I think the authenticity can come through in different ways, whether it's audio, video. However, when it's not the person telling you a story, you lose a little bit of that emotional energy that comes from that human exchange with another person. There are many talented authors who can capture a lot of that on the page, but I still think something's missing if it's not an in-person exchange. I like to see someone's expression, so I'm a very visual person. So it depends too on how the person is a learner and how they receive information. I love being able to see someone's eyes and lips and face when I'm being told a story.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And Dr. Tammy Francis, I will also pass the same question over to you, because maybe you might have a different point of view on that. But just to, I guess, maybe to reiterate my question, when it comes to the audio, video, and also, text version, when it comes to the AI, and when we talk about authenticity and, human creativity and authentic to me, so to speak, do you think AI could potentially do those different factors? Or do you think it's just like, no, it can't do any of that at all whatsoever? Like you think it's 100% human and it has to be human, or if it is human, it has to be like human with AI, that kind of sort of thing?
So I agree with Tracy. And I think it has to be a little of both, and more so human. What I know about telling stories and interacting with people and making connections and authenticity, it starts with purpose. And so if the story has a purpose, if all of that typically comes from the human, whether you're feeding it to the AI, the source, it still comes from human, like that purpose, that because I think stories are more powerful when they inspire, when they disrupt, when they heal, when they reveal some issue. And that comes from humans, that comes from our experiences, that comes from our knowing. And I think that, yes, it's okay to use AI and technology as a tool, but I think a lot of that comes from making meaning. I think that's what stories is about, is making meaning and making and having connections to that meaning.
No, you do bring up a good point there. And I mean, I'm just also looking at the comments as well. And a comment in there was from Key Bookstore. He says, especially audio can't capture powerful human inflections, the unique voice, one of a kind in itself. That's what he said. Yes. So yeah, you bring up a very good point, Dr. Tammy Francis, and thank you for sharing that. And we're going to go on to the next question now. And James, I'm going to fire this one over to you, since I know you have a lot to say. So
I always do.
So here we go. So this question is, how does sharing our lived experience strengthen unity and global understanding? I think this is a very good question for you. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I look at everything now through the trinity of being human. That's the mind, body, spirit. And I look at things from an embodiment perspective. I know we talk a lot about AI and about artificial. So we've got artificial ingredients, artificial information, and now we've got artificial intelligence. And those are all tools. But when we talk about personal stories, it's all around the human emotion. AI, artificial, does not have emotion. So in order to build bridges, is that really personal stories that resonate, that touches to the heart center, and that is around the world. But we also have to understand our audience. And so there's some really great innovations I saw. There's I'm actually writing a book, shock, but it's on Substack. And the reason I like about Substack is that it allows you to have mixed media. So I think I can't remember who the guest was that talked about wanting to see someone talk and moving their lips and their eyes. Well, if you have digital content like a mini podcast, you can create a book, a chapter that has graphics, but also has you as the author, not just your voice, but you speaking and telling your story about that chapter. So that way you could have maybe a younger audience that doesn't really like to read books, which became my problem, guys, because when I was in my addiction, I stopped reading physical books and I moved to the Kindle and I moved to the screen. And then I found that my library had all these unread books, all of them. And I was a big bookworm. And so we have to take that embodiment into consideration when we share personal stories and how they're delivered. Because if you deliver a book, a traditional book, well, I didn't read this because I didn't read physical books anymore. So it sat collecting dust until I was forced by the universe to read this chapter about the turtles, which told me, James, get a grip of your screen time and screens because it's killing you and your nervous system.
Right.
And so I think when we talk about these stories, we have to look at how they're communicated. And unfortunately, we have to do things so quick. So you have something fear, sex, or puppies, you know, because everything's so fast. And so we have to think of all these things when we share stories to create unity and more of a global understanding, because countries are different places. Brazil is 10 years behind the US. You know, the US is a hot mess with screens. You can't even go anywhere without it. And so we have to think of that in the embodiment of the human experience. That's the mind, the body, and the spirit, because it's all about our nervous system. It's about our emotions. That's about our pineal gland, some of the things that we don't talk about that we need to, because as we become more evolved and as we head closer to singularity, we need to come together as a people, as a unified, because once AI reaches that singularity and understands we're divided, we should be scared. So we have to get ourselves together, guys.
Right. I mean,
what do you think?
And I mean, first of all, you do bring up an interesting point. Honestly, do we know what's going to happen in the future of AI? No. But you do bring up a good point in terms of, like, you know, first of all, staring at the screen all the time, it is bad for you. I mean, I've done it where I've been on the train, I've looked at my screen for 2 hours, get off the train, I'm like, who am I? Where am I? Right? Just
well,
looking at the
here's
screen.
the thing. Well, here's the thing. So when you are taking a break, guys, you need to make sure that you are not screening, because right then you're not actually resting. You're still working. Even if you're on a treadmill, and no judgment, I was there. That's how I got so bad, is that I never took mindful grounding breaks. And grounding is not nature. Grounding is just sitting with yourself, disconnecting from your mind and just sitting within. And man, Russell, it's hard. It is hard to do that. I couldn't just sit without my mind, because I'm a productive guy. I was an ex-Deloitte person. So of course I sat on a toilet with my laptop. And so that's not rest. I mean, it's not rest. Your nervous system is shot. That's what's happening. So just when you take a moment, just sit with yourself. That's why I have that's why when I was talking with Amy about MRI, is actually creating space by putting your smartphone just for a week inside of a journal and actually write your emotions. Like, why, Russell? Why? I tell this to my clients. Why? Why are you pulled? Is it fear? What is it? You need to do something? What is it? And once you understand the emotion around yourself, that's when we break the matrix wide open. And I teach clients how you can rewrite your matrix using your phone. There's wonderful tools.
No, I do agree, James, and it's always interesting speaking to you every time. I always learn something new. So thank you for sharing, James.
Thank you. Guys.
And Chantal, let's bring you into this conversation. Same question for you. How does sharing our lived experience strengthen unity and global understanding? Or do you even potentially agree with what James was saying, you know, in terms of, you know, screen time, taking a break, etc.? Like, what are your thoughts on everything that's been discussed so far?
So first of all, I wrote a book about a sexual awakening. This baby right here, sexual awakening. So I've got that draw card factor, right? And I love that embodiment component. But I'm going to take a slightly different angle to my answer to this particular question.
Okay.
We talk about unity, we talk about global understanding, and the nirvana of those emotions is love. What is the opposite of love? Now, many of us have been conditioned to look at the opposite of love as hate. But the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. And it's fear of the other. And if we look at all the big genocides in our world, genocides started because of fear of the other. That is the thing that creates division. That is the thing that leads to world wars. Right? So the more we share our stories with the world across borders, the more we're basically saying we are the same. And I see it in my business all the time. I've had an international business since I started my business. I work across borders. And the minute people start opening up, We remove those barriers. We no longer see color, race, creed. And this just creates an even platform. And I think that's critical.
That was very powerful, Chantal. And yeah, you do bring up a very strong point, which honestly, I've never even thought about, to be honest, until you brought it up. So, and who would have thought the opposite to love is fear? Like, I mean, I would be like one of those other people thinking it's hate originally, but now you've even changed my mind and perspective. So thank you, Chantal.
Awesome.
Sarah, what is your thoughts on this question too? Do you agree with Chantal, or do you not agree even?
Yeah, when I think about the question about strengthening unity and through writing, I think needing to find the balance between a unique perspective and a universal emotion is kind of the key, because I think so often when we want to feel like our writing, our work, we want it to appeal to a broad audience. So we can maybe make it too generic because we're like, oh, if I get into all the details, they're not going to relate to it because they haven't lived that experience. But those details are what makes it come to life and are what makes it unique. And the emotion that it evokes, the emotion that you felt through that experience, that's what can be universal. And someone can say on the other end of it, you know, I've never lived in that country and I've never been to that place, but I've felt that emotion. And that's what makes them feel like they're part of something. And so for me, it's finding that balance to, you know, that's what brings people together. Unique perspective, but the universal emotion.
That doesn't make sense, actually. And, you know, I hear all the time that, you know, one of the most popular genres of books, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the most popular books is romance novels, right? You know, where it takes you on a journey of, you know, boy meets lady, and then, you know, lady gets stuck in the tower, and then she needs rescuing, and then boy goes up there and rescues her, and all this sort of stuff, right? So it's kind of like you get like a sort of journey of like going up and down, and then left and right, and then finally, you know, he saves her, and they become king and queen, and he'll live happy ever after, right, so to speak. But when you're talking about romance novels, it's very similar in the context to what you're explaining, right? Because it's still having that unity, that connection, like everyone's still feeling the same thing reading the book, so to speak. But it's still like a journey to that, as in it's like a roller coaster. Do you kind of understand what I'm saying, or am I just speaking gibberish right now?
No, I mean, as a professional speaker, I've even found that when I want to introduce a framework or a process that I think will help the audience, I've actually found that when I give a case study from there in the audience's industry, pharmaceutical industry, finance, whatever it is, because I'm trying to really bring it home and show them how it fits into their world. Even if 90% of it is accurate, sometimes that 10% that maybe is a little different, they'll say, well, in my business or in my team that we have, and they'll almost like reject it a little bit. But if I take them out of their industry totally, like we're not even going to try to make this relevant for industry, and I tell them a story about travel, and I'm taking them to a foreign land, a foreign place, so they're not trying to make the connections with the story. But then I bring it home for them and I say, now here's the lesson, here's the point, and here's how you could apply that to yourself, or they're already making those connections. It's like, it seems to work better in my experience because they're not resisting it. They're enjoying the details of a story. They're immersed in it. And then they pull out the lesson that makes sense for their world and their life. You're not forcing it down their throat. So my experience.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Cause I mean, I've been a speaker myself, you know, it's kind of like when you do speak about the use case, like you said, there's like the final 10%, but then when you give them like a perspective like of everyday life where everyone can sort of relate to it, like you travel or even like flying or something like that, or even just, you know, everyday things you do, like having a cup of tea and it gets too hot and everyone goes, ow, kind of thing, right? When you do something very similar like that and then they get it, and then you're like, that's how then it also applies to your industry. They're like, oh yeah, I get that. That makes so much sense. It's like a really good like analogy storytelling basically of something different. So anyway, thank you so much, Sarah. We've kind of gone off a bit track there, but let's get back on track now. So JJ, we're going to bring you into this next question. And Key Bookstore said, Russell, what's your favorite genre of books? We'll get to that in a little while. So the question is, what risks and rewards come with telling stories across cultures? So JJ, what are your thoughts on this question?
Well, one of the things, so a lot of the stuff that I do is really based on what we know about how the brain works and neuroscience and all of that stuff. And I'm constantly trying to get people to read more. So I'm always like, you don't have to read a self-help book if you don't want to. Actually, fiction books are good to read. And I say, fiction books have been shown to increase empathy, which is the ability, it's not like putting yourself in someone's shoes exactly. Empathy is really like not saying, oh, well, in this situation, I would have done this, but it's like, I put myself in this person's, kind of, person, and I'm looking at the world through their eyes. And maybe that's a different look from the way that I would see it as myself. But when I'm looking through another person's eyes, I can really see and understand something different. So I feel like, when we're talking about fiction and empathy, that's really important to kind of, we were talking earlier about, or Chantel was saying that like genocide is about the other. And so when we're able to read books about different cultures, and we're able to stand in someone else's shoes, if the author is very good, we can stand in someone's shoes and really see what that culture is like. And then it's like, how can I have, if I've done that, how can I then have hatred or fear of, this other person, this other culture? So I think, the other thing about reading across cultures, and I didn't do a lot of it when I was younger, and I do a lot more of it now, like reading, maybe some people that I wouldn't have read before. And really, and you can read about, and you get to learn about all of these different things and about how, other cultures handle things. And so you might say, oh, this culture has a really interesting way of, graduating 13-year-old boys and girls into adulthood, because a lot of cultures do have that ritual. We don't in the US, but, other cultures do generally. So I think, the rewards are really high of, you get to feel that universal experience, and I was thinking when we were, when I was looking over the questions, I was thinking about like Marcus Aurelius and Shakespeare, right? And even though Shakespeare's been dead for, 600 years or whatever, we read, he says stuff like in Hamlet, he says, there is nothing bad or good, but that we think of. I'm mangling the quote. But he basically says, the events happen. It's our own brains that provide whether it's good or bad. And so we can look and understand, a guy who was 600 years old, Marcus Aurelius, thousands of years ago. We read their writing and go, yeah, I totally resonate with that. And here's a way, that maybe I don't have it in my culture, but here's another way that I can address this problem or communicate with people. So I think the rewards are really high. I would say the risk is sometimes, you might say something that's okay in one culture and it might be sort of
not good in another.
Not good in another culture, yeah. Or somebody might mistake your meaning. You're trying to say something.
Yeah.
So I think, to me, that's the biggest risk, but I really think that the rewards are much greater than that risk.
No, thank you for sharing that, JJ. And empathy is actually a big part of this, but I also believe connectivity as well. In general, also we talk about authenticity. There's so much that we covered here. I mean, even if you think about it, universally applicable across cultures, like Chantel was talking about, love and fear, right? That's a universal thing. So I think there's a lot of ways in which you can tell stories across culture. And there's many ways you can kind of connect the dots together to be able to get your point across. So thank you for sharing, JJ. And obviously, you're from Asia, the Asia region. So I'm curious to hear from your point of view and your lens, and, what do you think are the risks and rewards that come with telling stories across culture from where you are?
I think, like what JJ has said, one of it is really about the cultural lens, because whatever that we share, it's always being received by the person's personal lens. So what you say may not be what has been received. So that I think is always the risk. And like one of the speaking engagements that I did in Kazakhstan, which is Central Asia. It's
Mhm.
Asia, but it's also not Asia because they were formerly with the USSR before they became independent,
Right.
and they are a whole melting pot of different cultures. So I was a bit worried, like if I share my story, will it even resonate, and how would they view what I said from a very small country compared to where they have, like, how you say, they were part of the Silk Road, they have very, very deep history. But what I found was that it actually broke all stereotypes, because the story that I shared, I kind of like borrowed a little bit of the culture by bringing in pictures of their landscape and also of their culture. So when they saw it kind of like just softened the ground, and they open up their hearts and not just their ears to listen to the story. And the reward was, I talked about taking the unpredicted road to taking a longer way and taking a break versus the rush and crazy madness of our work life. And everyone understood that about taking that long road. And when I called out the audience to kind of like ask certain questions about how they viewed him and how the person was able to have an impact on his community, it actually broke the stereotype, because it was about real voices being heard. So his voice echoed what I was saying, and the audience echoed his voice. So I think that was a reward, because being able to allow the listener to participate and to open up their hearts through that connection
Mhm.
was really very rewarding. And I think we walked away appreciating the different culture, but yet also appreciating the commonalities.
It's very interesting, like how those, all those dots connect together, right? And how it comes together, and how you're able to put the points across from one country to another, or from one culture to another. And it does make you think as well. I know we're going back to the AI topic. It's a big topic, right? But the whole AI side of things, right? It dilutes a lot of the stuff, right? It dilutes a lot of the cross connectivity, the cross wording that you're trying to get from one place to another, the culture difference, etc. And you do kind of lose that sort of culture difference, so to speak, when you're using AI, no matter how much it helps you and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, are we going to potentially have AI which is specifically to one culture? Is it going to be like, this is sort of the whole conversation when we get into the AI side of things. But to your point, Anne, just kind of like rewinding back now from the AI aspect, but to your point, I definitely think that cross culture, that cross connectivity is super important, especially like in today's world. And it's just like, how do we keep that, or how do we bring that forward into, as I like to call it, the AI age that we're going into, and how do we maintain that as well? That's kind of just the other side and the other half that I'm thinking about on this. So thank you for sharing, Jane.
May I
Sorry,
put in a view on that AI piece? Because I am active in the speaking world. So traditionally, a lot of speakers would have crafted their own speech based on their experience. But I think with AI, we've seen an emergence of the ordinary people stepping on stage and having the courage to speak, because AI has helped them refine their speech. But as to whether it brings out their voices, I do see that sometimes it actually dilutes it, because if you rely on AI without training your AI to be a mini you, then some of those nuances do get lost, and we end up with a lot of it's almost like when I hear a speech, I know it's written by AI, because there are certain formats that AI usually uses. Yeah, just that.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, everyone's an AI expert, right? So, but anyway, let's go on to the next conversation. So I will answer a key bookstore. They said, Russell, what's your favorite genre of books? I actually read a lot of entrepreneurial books. stuff like Gary V and stuff like that. So and also AI books too. So I read a mixture of books. Really, it's kind of more sort of educational and entrepreneurial side of things. So just to answer your question there. So the next question is, how has our worldview been influenced by hearing tales and different places worldwide? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix this up a little bit right now. Now, nothing too crazy, don't worry. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go in a certain order now. I'm literally just going to like quick fire you and just go, all right, Sarah, JJ, Chantal. Okay, so we'll just kind of do the quick fire things. So since Tracy's got her microphone unmuted first, we'll start with her. But I'm just going to call out random people and we'll just, kind of dot around in terms of who's going to like speak, whatever. So Tracy, we'll start with yourself on this question.
Sure. I think two of the biggest influences are, to summarize a bunch of our contributions here, are that tales can break down barriers and they can teach others about cultures and human experience.
Okay, well, that was a short, straight to the point. I like that, Tracy. Thank you very much for that. James, what are your thoughts?
Well, I will take the other way around. So I've been witnessing a lot of AI fakes that have been really showing some, this is in the United States, this is around the election. And it doesn't matter what side you are on, but when you use AI to disparage and create falsehoods about culture and people, I have a serious problem with that. So I've actually disengaged a lot. That was the big thing that had me remove. I'm not off of social media, but I only post positive things. And so when you really start seeing this, especially down around election cycles every 2 years in the United States, you really become aware of the wickedness that comes out of AI from a culture perspective. And there are some seriously fake videos that look to be funny, but culturally, I'm like, that's just offensive. And I'm not even a Black person. And so I find that offensive. So I think that we have to have that conversation. There's so much wonderfulness with AI, but the fact that AI can steal from the artist, from the creator, and there's really nothing that can be done. So the worldview has changed, has tarnished. I've always been a global person, but then since the rise of AI and seeing some of the fakes and the effects that's having on children and teenagers, that really is going to be spread across the world as AI has a much more solid footing around the world, because it's just it's coming in the Western world. And so I always warn other countries, hey, be mindful of this, because you have to have strategies in place to protect your children and protect your identity and protect your creations. And so that's what I see happening.
No. I definitely think IP is important. I definitely think artistry is important. I think creativity is extremely important, and I definitely think protecting that is extremely important, James. So thank you for sharing. My next question is, what does global relevance mean without losing cultural background? Dr. Tammy Francis, over to you. Like I said, I am jumping around and dotting around, so doing this a bit different. So over to you, Dr. Tammy Francis. Oh, your microphone is muted, I believe.
Okay. Sorry about that. I hit it, but I guess I clicked it twice.
Yes.
So let's talk about relevance, right? Because relevance doesn't mean necessarily same, right? It just means that something resonates with you, right? And you can connect with something. So back to that connection piece. And I think that we also, authenticity matters, right? So the stories being authentic. And that's what I think, if people bring that to the table, and that's how we connect. That's how we this global relevance. And I think the previous question, just thinking about what was said there and thinking about traveling and how our worldview is expanding. That's how we don't lose our cultural background. You stay authentic to who you are. You bring that to the table, and you connect with people in that way.
Lynn, what does global relevance mean without losing cultural background from your point of view, Lynn?
Yeah, before I even answer this, I'd like to go back to a previous question on how our worldview has changed based on tales from the world, right? And I would bring the aspect of access to many tales. Having the access to internet, having access to devices, we now have more access to tales. I would give an example, like long ago, like a decade ago, the narrative about Africa was that all Africans live with lions, right? Or they live with leopards, or perhaps there's war everywhere, or
Right.
perhaps it's just a jungle. That was the tale that was sold, and so many people had that idea. And now the access to internet, the access to so many storytellers outside the world has changed that view. They can come to Africa and they say, oh, not every place has a lion, not every place has a giraffe. There's some places that have other animals, or there's some other places that have people, and not everyone lives in a manyatta. There's a house that was called manyatta, and people thought Africans live in a manyatta, right? So it's the opening up through the internet, through the access to devices, through the emergence of storytellers and content creators that have really influenced how we see the world. And on the second question, what does global relevance mean without losing cultural background? For me, that means I'll just stick back to being authentic, okay? And when it comes to global relevance, you are relevant because of your uniqueness. You're not relevant because you went viral. It's what made you go viral, and I think it's your uniqueness that made you really relevant. It's your authenticity. It's how you do it. That is what makes you relevant, and perhaps it's your culture, right? I can see the image right here. You see the image with the question slides, and you see people of different cultures. That is what makes them relevant, and I think that's it for me when it comes to relevance.
I'm just gonna like chuck a snowball and just blow all this up basically. I'm also gonna add to this as well, experience, right? Individuals' experience, because everyone's experience is different in the world, and that's what also brings you like the global relevance mean without losing a cultural background. Like you're bringing your uniqueness and experience and your culture to a different place. So, for example, I'm British, as everyone can hear, but if I go to the US, right, and I bring my UK and stuff like that there, like should I say my London stuff there, it's completely different in a place like, let's say, San Francisco and Los Angeles versus me being in London and speaking to other London people. So you bring that global relevance to another place. So it's very interesting. And also when it comes to AI, it's like, how do you keep that relevance? How do you maintain having that relevance as well in the age of AI, and also bringing that across into your AI as well? So anyway, that's a whole nother story though, but let's get into some more questions because we are running out of time, and I also want to make sure that we get across, well, actually we've only got 5 minutes left. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to switch this up because I know how everyone hasn't spoken. So what I want to do is from each of yourselves, I want to have 30 seconds from each of you of what do you want to see in the future, when it comes to books, when it comes to authorship, what do you want to see in the future in the age of AI? So we'll keep this short as possible. We'll go around to each individual person and, we'll get your thoughts. So, and we'll start with yourself. We'll then go to JJ, Sarah, Chantal, James, etc. But like I said, try and keep your answers short because we've very limited time. And I want to make sure that I get your opinion. So the question is, and I'll just repeat it again, when it comes to authorship or creating a book, what is it that you want to see in the future when it comes to AI? Is it authenticity or is it connectivity, etc.?
Okay, I'll go. So I would love authors who are deeply rooted in their culture and what makes them unique. But I think ultimately what's going to connect all of us is the human spirit. So what are we doing that is making all of us more human? And the content should allow us to gather the same feelings, the relevance, and feel that connection, because it would invite us to reflect rather than demanding us to agree with you, but through the difference and regain that similarity and it resonates. I think that's going to be a hard-hitting book.
Completely agree. JJ, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I definitely agree that emotional resonance is something that we humans have, and I don't think AI is going to create. I also don't think AI is going to get us to the singularity, but I would say, kind of on a practical matter, I would like to see people say, this book was written by AI, or I wrote the book and then I edited it with AI, so that people know, what has been enhanced by AI and what hasn't.
Sarah, what are your thoughts?
I'd like to see stories that I feel like could not have been written by anybody else. I think it's easy to tell when something is AI generated, as far as like it's a generic story with cliche examples and comparisons, versus something that is, oh wow, only this person with their unique experience could have written this. And so I'd love to see more of that, and also the interpretation of what that story meant for that person. And then, like Anne was saying, you don't force the lesson down their throat, but you allow them to reflect on what it means for them.
Chantal, same question to you.
Well, because of who I am, I'm going to go provocative, and that's just where I'm at. I want to see polarization. I've written a book that absolutely polarizes audiences. And I think if we look in the context of AI and our society, AI aims to please. Our society aims to please. We need to polarize our audiences, because it is only through polarization that we shake people awake and people go, whoa, what is that? And this is how we move people to the next level. So I want to see more polarization.
Amazing. And just to repeat the question, just in case anyone has just joined us and has just joined, the question is, what is it in the future that you would like to see when it comes to authorship in the book? When it comes to the age of AI, was it something that you would like to see? So Chantal just said about polarization. James, try and keep it as short as possible, of course. But what are your thoughts on that?
I would love, number one, to have a just verify of the AI content, what's actually created, and what's real and what's not, but also a warning label. So when it is a screen, just like we have with cigarette cartons, to say, hey, more mindful intent, to say, just so you know, if you are absorbing this content, outside of just some kind of guidelines, to give the human, hey, just so you know, think of grounding, get in that mindset, because when you're going from work screen to then a Kindle, nothing wrong with it, but you're not taking a mindful break for your nervous system and your mind. And so a physical book is different. So we have to start educating people, especially young people, that there's a difference between a physical book experience, embodiment, versus a screen, and what that does to you. And it's not about passing laws. It's just about, we have to lead with intention around our nervous system and the difference between a screen and a book.
James, that was awesome.
No, seriously, I want to run this
with you.
Political.
Awesome.
I mean, like a political platform in America.
James, I 100% agree with you. Like, 1,000% agree with you.
People think I'm crazy, Russell. Some people think I'm crazy. But when you almost killed yourself, from screen. I could not stop but take a freaking selfie. The worst time of my life. I told this to Amy Blankston. This is a real phenomenon, guys. You see it in people's eyes.
James, sorry, but I do have to move on. Literally got 1 minute left. I'm sorry, James. Dr. Tammy Francis, your thoughts. What would you like to see in the future of books and authorship?
Well, I run a book club, and so I think reflection, discussion, and community conversation. So whether you're talking about a physical book or AI, let's have a conversation about it. Let's discuss it, and let's do some reflection on how that affects us personally and professionally. So yeah,
that was a good thumbs up from that, Dr. Tammy Francis. Tracy, what are your thoughts?
Well, wearing my risk and fraud hat, I am very much into more protections around protecting author content in the future, more transparency, more enforcement.
And Lynn, last but not least.
Yes, as the communications director for Gatherverse, I'd like to see more of you coming back to express your stories and share it to all the people you have in your circle. And more, one more thing, access. Let's remember we still have kids around the world who can't even have access to a pen, a book, or just a piece of paper. Access. And come to
access,
at Gatherverse.
Polarization, just verify, like talking, discussing in groups. Dr. Tammy Francis, like there's been so many awesome things said at the end there. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. This is the last roundtable. That is it for this year. So I just want to say thank to each and everyone on the panelists join us for the last roundtable. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors at Pico. Also, 5-star as well. Thank you for sponsoring as well. And I also want to say, make sure you follow and like all of these fantastic panelists here on this roundtable discussion, because without them, this wouldn't be possible for this entire roundtable discussion. So that is it from us. That is it from me. And I'm going to hand over to the Gatherverse team. And our Gather was well.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
My name is Cecilia Lascialfari, founder of RSXstuff.com, generative AI researcher and speaker. I live in Florence, Italy, and during my first trip to California in 2021 to attend my first XR World Expo, I interviewed a famous journalist and asked him why he had never considered publishing his books with a major publishing house. He replied that by the time the technology had been developed and the book written, that technology had already become obsolete, and capturing it in a book would have been pointless, because by the time the book was published, the information would already be out of date. In the XR world, where everything travels at the speed of light, this makes sense. But if everything really travels so fast, isn't this the right time to stop time and write the story of what is happening? In fact, I tried to do this with a group of 31 number of professionals in the world of artificial intelligence, and the book, which collects chapters written by each of them, will be published in the early 2026 by Springer. The part I wrote about concerns the interaction of culture and art with content created by artificial intelligence. But the issue that Gatherverse book is raising concerns precisely the creation of content, which today, thanks to artificial intelligence system, can be compromised in some way. Is compromised the right word? If we think of a writer who writes a text and then fits it into ChatGPT to have it reworked, or a writer who has no ideas and asks the AI system to suggest the structure of the book, are we dealing with credible content or not? Who decides what is and is not permitted with artificial intelligence systems? Laws such as the USCO or the EU AI Act, which have established rules on the creation of content combined with intellectual property starting in 2023, are people willing to declare that their content is created with AI systems, or are we not? And do we need systems such as content authenticity created by Adobe in 2018, which serves to track the veracity of content created with AI? Can we be honest when we use AI systems, or do we need technology to make us superior to other people? In my experience, I have used many different types of software to create content with artificial intelligence. The process that helps me complete the creation of content from start to finish is to create a story, then come up with my own idea or creative project, which I then implement using AI systems. I can create images in Midjourney, use Midjourney itself to create a video, or I often use Runway, which is a native tool for creating video. I can write text with ChatGPT and create spoken audio in many different languages, or with a wide variety of voice thanks to 11 Labs. I can create an avatar with a gen and apply the voice I created with 11 Labs and insert music that I generated with Udio, for example. But there are many AI systems today, and we may not have to follow the logical approach in using them. So what happens in publishing where books that bear witness to human evolution and guarantee the veracity of their content are created using AI? Many publishers don't allow their authors to use AI to create content, but the line is becoming increasingly blurred and difficult to control. Contracts are signed to guarantee the quality of content, but when the law creeps in and decides that certain content can be created for the sake of human evolution, there is a risk of misunderstanding. In Europe, the EUAI office is responsible for monitoring the application of the regulation established by the EUAI Act in member countries, but then it is up to each country to decide how to apply them. So we are still in a phase of learning and defining limits and boundaries for use of artificial intelligence to prevent misinformation from taking over. I would like to thank to Gatherverse for this invitation and thank you all for being here with me today, and may our gather be well.
What's going on, Gatherverse Summit? So often I hear people tell someone, oh, you need to read this book, you need to do this, you got to do that. And I think whenever you tell someone you need to, you got to, don't do that, I think they're a lot less likely to listen to whatever it is you have to say. I've been fortunate enough to get mentored by a very successful guy. The guy's worth hundreds of millions. And I told him about this book I was reading and how it's been kind of helping me break down a hard goal into daily, weekly, actionable steps. And so because I had been speaking about it in such a positive way and the impact that it had on me, one day he goes, "Hey, Brennan, you know that book you were telling me about? Would you mind sharing me the title? I want to read it on the plane someday." And so he ended up reading it on the plane, and he came back to me like a week later and he said, "Brennan, I'm so glad you told me about that book. I sat down and reevaluated my entire company." The guy had 5 billion assets under management at the time. He said, "I reevaluated my whole company, and we now have a plan to triple our revenue." They had been in business for about 24 years, and he could have coasted into retirement. It would have been totally fine. But he ended up reading this book and setting up a 3-year plan to triple the revenue. And they are about 3 years through that and got pretty close to that. So when I share a story like that, someone's going to be a lot more likely to want to know what the title of the book is because it inspired a very wealthy person to come up with a 3x time plan. And now that person executed on it and he's doing pretty well. So whenever someone says, "Oh, you got to read this book, you have to read this book," you're a lot less likely to read it. Why? Because there's no story to connect with the person who's listening. So if the theme of today is storytelling and how that connects with humans more, I think books are a perfect example because so often people have heard, "Oh, you got to read this book. You have to read this book." Whenever someone asks me, "Hey, Brennan, what's your favorite book?" I say, "When I Stop Talking, You'll Know I'm Dead" by Jerry Weintraub. And in that book, he talks about how he had a goal to take Elvis Presley on tour when he was in his 20s. When Jerry was in his 20s, he had a goal to take Elvis Presley on tour. And not only did he end up doing that, but he ended up producing movies like Karate Kid 1, Karate Kid 2, Ocean's 11, 12, 13, some of the best-selling movies ever. And so one of the stories that sticks out to me in there is this story later in Jerry's career when he got a call from Frank Sinatra. And Frank said, "Hey, Jerry, I know you got a million things going on, but I want you to revive my career." Now, if you don't know who Frank Sinatra is, he's basically the Taylor Swift of the modern era. He was arguably the most popular musician year after year after year for decades. And in his late 50s, he got an urge to go on tour again, and he trusted Jerry with his message and to get him out there. So Jerry ended up saying, yes, I'll do it. But he had to figure out creative ways to be able to get Frank excited and Frank's fans excited. So one of the first things they did was commit to doing the main event in Madison Square Garden. This is in 1974. And so he said, Frank, the thing we're going to do different is we're going to put you in a boxing rink in the middle of Madison Square Garden. And in that boxing rink, you're going to sing to a sold out crowd, and then we're going to put it on live TV. So Frank Sinatra ended up performing in a sold out Madison Square Garden on live TV. But there was an issue. The day of, Frank was chilling out in his hotel room, and Jerry rushed on in, and he said, "Jerry, what the hell is going on? Why are you just storming in here?" He said, "Frank, what are we going to do when the TV comes on? When the commercials come on from TV, what are we going to do? You're playing in front of a live audience." He said, "Jerry, relax. When the commercials come on, I'm going to perform in front of the live audience, and I'm going to sing my heart out. When the people come back off from commercials, I might be at the beginning of the song, the middle of the song, or the end of the song, but wherever they come in from, they're going to have a blast." And so he performed that night, and the rest was history. Jerry ended up working with him for quite some time, and they ended up becoming really good friends. And I share all that with you to say the reason that was one of my favorite books is because it talks about challenges consistently and how the greats are able to persist through challenges to get what it is that they want. So in my mind, storytelling is one of the most important things that humans need to do to be able to connect with others. Thank you for listening to me today.
Guys, my name is Kamani Harrison. I'm the founder of the Key Bookstore, and today I invite you to reimagine the bookstore with me. For book lovers, the bookstore is the pinnacle of the book experience. The bookstore is a hub for discovery, community gathering, and revelry in book culture. Until you go home feeling disconnected, to continue your book journey in isolation. So, as a book lover, we turn to social media for connection. So much so, driving 400 billion views across platforms like Book Talk, Fable, and Storygraph, trying to navigate community. But the point still remains. The bookstore is the hub for reading culture. I designed the Key Bookstore as an omnipresent evolution of the bookstore, removing the four walls of a bookstore to indulge in book-centric experiences from anywhere, leveraging futuristic technology to develop the central hub for book lovers to buy books, build connection, and stay immersed in reading culture. While perusing a bookstore or library, I would ask myself, who else has read this book? Who's the author? And what are they doing now? Where's their community? Book has a community of its own, and how awesome would it be to be able to access and connect with that community? We set out to build that experience. Imagine a world where every time you pick up a book, you don't just enter a story, you enter a community, a world where reading transforms from a private habit into a connected ecosystem that's socially engaging, culturally alive, and economically rewarding. Imagine a single platform where every part of your reading journey, discovering, reading, buying, reviewing, sharing, discussing, connecting, all woven in a single platform. That is the Key Bookstore. We are developing the decentralized hub for reading culture, a Web3 social network centered on books, where your influence, personal library, curated collections, and cultural impact earn probable on-chain recognition, and readers retain self-sovereign ownership of the digital identity they create through their contribution. To make this real, we're leveraging futuristic technology, blockchain architecture, metaverse, AR, VR experiences, wearables, and a creator-forward economic model, not because it's trendy, but because it's necessary. Books hold extraordinary cultural power, but the readers and community who drive the culture capture little value. Our insight is simple. Reading culture deserves infrastructure, a place where your reading identity is quantified, your contributions are rewarded, your engagement creates real value, and your community is everywhere. We're building that infrastructure, a decentralized social ecosystem where readers, authors, educators, influencers, librarians, bookstores, and book clubs can all participate, not as passive users, but as active stakeholders. What does that look like? It looks like finishing a book and immediately stepping into its global community. It looks like book clubs that live inside your reading app, not scattered across group chats. It looks like curated lists, reviews, recommendations, and streaks earning spendable value, quantifying your reading identity into an on-chain reputation with every book you touch. It looks like a place where authors can meet readers directly, where institutions can host programming, and where readers can earn meaningful recognition for the culture they build on a global scale. And yes, it looks like a bookstore too, a digital one that is always open everywhere you go, bringing the heart of the bookstore to daily life. We see the Key Bookstore as part of a larger cultural shift, a movement to take reading culture from isolation and into connection, to take book lovers from the margins of social platforms and bring them to the center of a community built specifically for them. This is not just an app, this is not just a bookstore. This is an evolution of how reading culture lives in the world. Just like the reading room societies of the Harlem Renaissance, we are building spaces, digital spaces, where community and culture can thrive outside the control of gatekeepers. Because cultural autonomy is not just empowering, it's transformative and is how communities rise, how voices amplify, and how ecosystems grow. The Key Bookstore is the next evolution of the bookstore, a global omnipresent hub for reading culture, a social network built on books, powered by technology, and driven by community. For every book lover who has ever wished for a deeper connection, for every reader who has ever felt alone in their passion, this platform is for you. We're building the home book lovers have always deserved, a place where your reading life finally becomes your social life, a place where reading culture is not just preserved, but celebrated, expanded, and shared with the world.
When I was a child, I believed stories were living things. They moved through the world like quiet rivers. They carried memories, truth, and transformations. They reach places where facts and data already guide us forward, adding the emotional resonance that help us understand why those facts matter. Even now, as a social entrepreneur, an author, and someone who lives a large part of her life in boardrooms and negotiations, I still trust that a single story can shift the trajectory of a society. This is what calls me to speak with you today. We're living in a century shaped by extraordinary innovation. AI, biotechnology, planetary scale computing. Yet, the real question is not what we can build, rather, what we should build. We need a compass, and stories are that compass. They reveal our values, they clarify what is sacred, they remind us that progress without wisdom is only acceleration towards an uncertain destination. In my work through Climate Conservancy and in every global forum I speak at, I meet young people who feel overwhelmed by crises they did not create. Rising temperatures, failing ecosystems, fractured political landscapes. When I ask them what keeps them going, they rarely mention charts. They talk about narratives, the one book that changed their life, the one film that opened their heart, the one story that made them feel less alone. That is the power we're talking about today. My own writing grew from that understanding. My first book, Ethereal, was born out of a very personal realization that healing is not a quiet or linear journey. It's a conversation between the self you were, the self you lost, and the self you are becoming. The book carries pieces of my own life, but its purpose is much greater. It invites readers to see their pain not as an ending, but as a doorway, a passage to beauty, to meaning, and to a deeper consciousness. My book, The Climate Awakening, continues that conversation on a global scale. It's a narrative rooted in science, but it is driven by the soul. It examines the climate crisis not simply as an environmental event, but as an awakening of human imagination, a moment in history that urges us to rethink the story of our relationship with the planet as custodians. When I wrote the book, I realized something profound. People do not act because they are told to care. People act because they feel called. A story can do that. It can call you. It can move you. It can place you inside a future that feels possible. And once you have seen a possible future, you cannot unsee it. That is why creative storytelling is an engine behind social progress. It's how we translate knowledge into transformation. It's how we ensure technology evolves with dignity, conscience, and emotional intelligence. As I look at the world we are building, I remain hopeful not because our challenges are simple, but because our capacity for imagination is vast. If we can tell better stories, we can build better systems. If we can build better systems, we can create a future where technology honors humanity, where creativity guides intelligence, and where the planet is protected rather than sacrificed. So today I invite you to treat storytelling as a sovereign force, a force that can bridge generations, inspire consciousness, and turn possibility into practice. Thank you.
Procurement for the page, the human book in its new age of purpose. Good day to all. It's an honor to be here among so many custodians of the written word, authors, technologists, publishers, educators. We have gathered to ask urgent questions in an age of algorithmic flux. What happens to human storytelling? What is authorship now? And I feel beneath these questions, a deeper, more personal pulse. What happens to human purpose in this new landscape? And we are not just talking about books. We are talking about vessels for human experience, for hard-won wisdom, for the messy, glorious, and non-optimized journey of a life. My work has focused on the profound life transition many of us face, one that, like AI, is reshaping identities and expectations. I explore the shift from a stage of life we have narrowly defined as retirement to something more dynamic, contributory, and generative. I call it protirement, not an exit, but an entrance, not an end of productivity, but a redirection of accumulated capability. And isn't that precisely what we are asking of the book today? We fear the flood of machine-generated language might retire the human book, push it into a dusty shelf of obsolescence. But what if instead we welcome its protirement? Let me explain. The essence of protirement is moving from a single fixed identity, I am my job title, to a multifaceted portfolio of purpose. Mentor, creator, learner, citizen. It leverages the unique capital of lived years. A human authored book is the ultimate output of that capital. It is not just data arranged for efficiency. It is compressed life. It's the A to Z of a person's curiosity, their failures, their ethical dilemmas, their love for a subject that no algorithm can feel. It has a fingerprint. So in this age of AI, the role of the book must enter its protirement. Its new purpose is not to compete with the algorithmic stream on volume or speed, but to do what only it can do. First, to be an anchor of trusted provenance. In the flood, we will need shelf we can trust. The rigorously researched, ethically sourced, and humanly accountable book become not less important, but vital, a benchmark of integrity. Second, to be a vessel for irreducible human context. And AI can synthesize every text on, say, leadership, but it cannot write Nelson Mandela's long walk to freedom. That story is inseparable from the flesh, the spirit, and the specific struggle that live it. Our stories are our ultimate encryption. Third, and this is crucial, to serve as a mentor. The protirement phase is guided by mentor, not instructor. AI is a phenomenal instructor, a vast, instantaneous data sheet, but a book is a mentor. It sits with you. It allows you to dog ear a page, to argue in the margin, to return years later and find new meaning because you have changed. It offers not just answer, but questions shaped by a human consciousness. So what is our grounded approach? We must become creator of human wisdom. We must use this extraordinary new tool not to replicate, but to elevate, to handle the tributary of data so the rivers of human insight can run clearer and deeper. As author, we must write with even greater courage about what it means to be alive. As publisher, we must brandish human author, not as a disclaimer, but as a seal of that. As readers, we must become discerning gardeners, cultivating the shelf that feed our humanity. The book is not retiring. It is entering its most critical phase of service. Its new role is to remind us what we are writing for, not just to generate content, but to sustain culture, not to simulate understanding, but to share it. The future we shape won't be written by machine. It will be written by humans who use machines wisely, guided by the essential A to Z wisdom of what a life of purpose truly means. Thank you.
Jenny Watts, book coach, editor, and business book catalyst. Today I want to talk to you about book publishing in the age of AI. Let's start with the obvious. We are drowning in AI-generated books. Every day, Amazon is hit with a tidal wave of new books that are created by tools designed to produce content and not craft. It's gotten so out of hand that Amazon now limits authors to 3 published books per day. If you can write and publish 3 or more books before lunch, you're not an author, you're a content factory. How did we get here? Traditional publishing had gatekeepers, right? If your book wasn't ready, it didn't go anywhere. It did not get published. Full stop. Then self-publishing came along and made it easier than ever for anyone to publish anything, and they did. Self-publishing caught a bad rap for flooding the market with low-quality books. But compared to AI, self-publishing was just a little drizzle. AI turned it into a monsoon. So what's actually happening now is people are using generative AI to crank out entire books in hours or even minutes. We're seeing drafts or actual published content where the author forgot to delete the prompts that they used. We're seeing entire chapters that are copied from other sources, books that are full of generic, monotone AI speak that pretends to be inspirational wisdom, and zero structure, zero clarity, and zero soul. This matters for more than just literal quality, though. Seth Godin recently put into words what's happening. He said the number of books published digitally every year has gone from 40,000 to 1 million. And for a big book launch, distribution has dropped from 20,000 copies in the first week to 120 copies in the first week. The economics of scarcity-based publishing are over. The translation is that readers are overwhelmed, not by choices, but by noise. And in that overwhelm, real authors, humans with actual expertise, are getting buried. Let's dig into his quote a little bit more, though. What he's really talking about is connection, and how the human connection is being lost and replaced with digital connection. That 20,000 copies in the first week going down to 120 copies, that's because readers are now more connected to their devices and would rather consume books via audiobook or ebook than a physical copy of books. So in assistive versus generative AI, this is where authors actually get tripped up. Generative AI is basically, hey, write my book for me. And that's autopilot, basically driving your book straight into a ditch. But assistive AI is different. It's like power steering. You're still driving, you're just using a little help. So AI can absolutely support your writing and publishing process. It can help you refine your ideas, test your angles, outline more clearly, self-edit more effectively, brainstorm cover concepts, and streamline your formatting tasks. Assistive AI elevates your thinking. Generative AI, however, replaces your thinking. And when you replace your thinking, you're erasing the one thing that readers actually come for, your humanity. A fully AI-generated book can imitate your voice, but it cannot earn your authority. Can we talk about the M- for a moment? One side effect of AI's overuse of the M- is that now writers are avoiding using them. Like punctuation shame is suddenly a thing. Imagine stripping perfectly good punctuation from your writing because you are afraid of being accused of using AI. That is not editing. That is dystopia. We're also seeing ghostwriters who are charging thousands or even tens of thousands for books that they didn't even write, done-for-you authority books that are created entirely by bots, and authors publishing content they had zero hand in creating. This erodes trust fast. Readers can smell when a book has no heartbeat. So where does this leave us? AI is not the enemy. Lazy publishing is. When used responsibly, AI can make you a better writer. It can make the process smoother, faster, cleaner. It can support your creativity. It doesn't need to replace it. But the moment that AI becomes the author instead of the assistant, you are no longer writing a book. You're producing a pamphlet. And because the heart of great nonfiction is perspective, messy, brilliant, lived experience, you can't outsource that to a machine. And that's what I help authors protect and amplify, their real voice, their real authority, and their real connection to the reader. AI can help you write a sharper book, absolutely. But your story, your insight, and your humanity, that's the magic. And that's non-negotiable.
This is Cobus Visser, Cobus of a Sea, called the Viking, all the way from South Africa. And I'm known for the Viking because I not only look like a Viking, but I live by the Viking values. It's all about values. Well, what I'm going to talk about today is just a little bit of a touch about whatever it takes. What does it mean to live by whatever it takes? Just to give you a sort of a small understanding of who Cobus Visser is. Cobus Visser, I was born as a hemophiliac. And now, for those who don't know what a hemophiliac is a bleeder. It means my blood doesn't clot. And so over the years, I have to inject myself a clotting factor to help the blood to clot. The impact this has had on my life is that my joints have disintegrated. I don't have elbows anymore. I don't have muscles. I have to get both my elbows replaced, and I get to have both my ankles fused. Now, what I want to share with you, what is the philosophy around whatever it takes? Now, it starts with, what is the destiny you want to create? What is your future? What is the vision for yourself going forward? I ended up being in a wheelchair and I couldn't walk. The only way I could move around was either with crutches or in a wheelchair, or sometimes I had to crawl on my knees. The impact of this was a lot of mental health challenges, where it would impact my mental health so much so because I live in pain 24/7. Now, what I want to share with you today is the quote that changed my life. Because on this journey of whatever it takes, I set myself a vision and a destiny so high that it seemed impossible to achieve. My vision and goal was to go and climb the mountain by the name of Kilimanjaro in Africa, the highest mountain in Africa, and I did it all with my crutches. Now, as you know, most people would say, and even my doctors, Cobus, can't you just look at your reality? Your reality is you can't even walk. How are you going to climb the highest mountain? The chances of you coming back is almost zero because of altitude and of being in a crutches and being able to climb a mountain like that. Now, we have a choice. We can either listen to people or we can change it. Now, the quote that I live by that I want to tell you is, while you can 10x not only your life, but your business and anywhere you are in your life, is this formula. If we look at the destiny, you are living the destiny you have been created now since the beginning of your life. Where you are now, you've created. No matter what the reality is, you've created it because it follows this formula. Now, my destiny was suddenly realized when the doctor said, Cobus, you have to get both your elbows replaced, you have to get both your ankles fused. That is your reality. And I could either accept it or change it. And I realized when I read this quote that it changes with my beliefs. But how do I change my beliefs? Beliefs about the economy, beliefs about my health, beliefs about my reality. Because beliefs are being created because of past experiences, but also beliefs are being created of what ifs for the future. Because of the news we're reading today impacts our tomorrow. Because our beliefs are impacted by our thoughts. As a man thinketh, I hope you read books, so is he, or so he becomes, right? So thoughts is very important. How do you think about yourself on a daily basis? Because we have to weed out our thoughts, weed out the negative thoughts, and then replant. You have the power to put any thought into your mind. That's where the power lies. Because our thoughts become our words. They say life and death is in the power of the tongue, and those who love to use it will bear the fruit of it. So what is the words you speak? Now, to impact your beliefs, you have to use the right words, because words impact your thoughts impact your words, and that's how we start changing our beliefs. But now it's just still words, it's just still thoughts. We don't see the reality yet, and therefore we need to take actions. Positive mind, positive words equals positive actions. Now, if you are negative, it leads to negative actions. Also, it impacts either we're going to take more risk or we're going to not take more risk. A person that is more positive in business and more an optimist will take easily a risk than someone that is constantly negative about the economy, about the president, about everything that's happening in the world, and they will want to protect. So you want to be a point where you have the right actions followed by the right words, the thoughts that will impact your beliefs. Now, here's the next thing. Those actions over a period of time become so part of you that it becomes a habit. It's like driving a car for the first time. You still have to look at the mirrors. You have to have both hands on the steering wheel. You have to change your gears. You have all of this happening at the same time. But over a period of time, by repeating those actions, it becomes a habit. You do it without thinking. And then the biggest thing is, what is your values? What is your three values? My three values is courage, freedom, and legacy. And that's why I write books. That's why I wanted to write a book, and I want to inspire others to write their story. Because think about this, you have the power to impact people in the future with your legacy. I got my dad now to write a book, and part of writing his book is I said to him, imagine my kids one day, when I'm not there, he's not there, and they can go to their library and they can take out a book of their dad, of their grandfather or grandmother, and we can learn from the past so that we are not destined to repeat it. And that's why I love it, because legacy is our destiny. Is what are we leaving people behind? And that's how we're going to impact the world. And that's why I went on to write my book called Walking Through Fire, Whatever It Takes. Now, I don't have all the time today to go really in detail about my story, but that's why I wrote the book. It's my memoir. It's my journey of where I went from being, how I got into a wheelchair first and foremost, and how I got out of it. And where I went to climb the mountain. I just didn't go and climb it. I almost died on the mountain. I actually went to die on the mountain. And at the end of the day, I died. And I came back as a new person. And the only thing that got me through was the phrase, whatever it takes. I even have an armband that says whatever it takes. And the reason for this is I have the control over my destiny. When I say I will do my best, or I can always have an excuse. I can always blame someone else why I don't have it. However, when I use whatever it takes, there's no excuse. There's no blame. If it's to be, it is up to me. Ladies and gentlemen, Book Gatherverse, I'm honored to be here today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about who I am. All the best to everyone. Remember, 2025 is almost over. We are getting ready for 2020 success. Listen to it again. 2020 success. Success. I think success. My beliefs change to it can be success. My reality becomes slowly and slowly more that 2020 success will be your best year ever. This is Kobus Visser. Whatever it takes. They call me the Viking, by the way. Cheers. Till next time.
Once there were brook trout in the streams and the mountains. You could see them standing in the amber current where the white edges of their fins wimpled softly in the flow. They smelled of moss in your hand, polished and muscular and torsional. On their backs were vermiculate patterns that were maps of the world and its becoming. Maps and mazes of a thing which could not be put back, not be made right again. In the deep glens where they lived, all things were older than man, and they hummed a mystery. Cormac McCarthy, The Road. This is more serious than it's ever been. Did you think that you just came to a book summit? Did you think that you just attended a money summit, a food summit, a Tech for Humanity summit, XR Evolve summit, men's health, women's health, the superhero engine, She Summit, AI summit? Did you think that you just attended another product event? Let me be as direct as I can with permission. If we do not build with the consideration of human betterment at every and each step of our innovations, then we are headed in the wrong direction. What we don't want to do is find ourselves in a situation where things cannot be made right again. This isn't just Amazon book delivery. This isn't just about authorship. This is about the integrity. This is about the expression. This is about the preservation of human expression of you. Your experiences and stories conveyed. And they can never be duplicated by machines. You can never be outplaced by a machine. And AI can never supersede the human code that's been passed down through the ages and generations of time itself, where a man and a woman have come together and brought forth birth and passed on DNA from heart to heart. I encourage each of you to don't forfeit your judgment and don't forfeit your sovereign expression, because that's right. The greatest database on the face of this planet was the one that came between your mother's thighs when you were born and produced, called the human brain. You have more creativity than any model that any company, any corporation or startup could ever make. It's deep within you. Find it there. We lose agency. We surrender a part of our agency each and every time that we use these tools. I'm not saying don't use AI, but lead first with your heart. This is our final Gatherverse Summit of the year. We've had hundreds of people speak in this studio this year on an amalgamation, a number of different topics of expression. We're so thankful, grateful. I've listened to each of you. I've listened intently to what you've said. There are so many people that care, and we're not bitter. We're not jaded, if you will. We just understand that the most important narrative of the day when it comes to technological scale, empirically, through observation, is at the end of the day, did this technology make my life better? Did this technology offer food for my table and for my cupboards? Did it help me to be able to pay my mortgage and my rent and my bills? Did it bring me closer to the ones I love? Or did it push me further apart? Did this technology bring me closer to machine or to the human heart? I believe that somebody out there right now at Gatherverse.live or some other various social stream right now is listening, and I believe that you feel what it is that I'm saying. And to the unknown viewer, whom I don't know, I would submit to you to do something with that which you have heard. Be impactful, whether someone's watching or not. What our future generations inherit will be what we innovate today. And if we only did it for money and for profit and not sustainability itself, then we have failed. Look around you. See who's in the room of innovation. Everyone should have the opportunity to be able to build if it's in their heart's desire to do such. Everyone should have equal access to the incredible technologies that are deployed around the world so that they can use these technologies to bring value to their communities, to their homes, to their families. This isn't about your legacy. Who cares about your legacy? This isn't about social media likes and favorable algorithms. At Gatherverse, we could care less. What we do care about is building the best platform possible to present speakers of expression that come to assemble with us from around the world, that give us their time that they'll never get back. And we do this with a servant's heart. We're so thankful for all of our sponsors who've given us the financial wherewithal and the means to be able to bring everybody together. We can't do this without you, and we cannot do this without the global Gatherverse community. We hope that you found a friend within us. We hope that you felt comfortable sitting and exploring and enjoying the narratives upon narratives that have been sent to you this year, live and in action, in recorded expression. We hope that you will tell a friend, a neighbor, a family member, even perhaps with the consideration to tell a stranger. We hope that you reach out to every single person that spoke today and all the different summits we've had this year. We hope that you would truly reach out and just to give them some encouragement, just maybe even to say thank you, or just to say it's good to be connected together. I hope that you find abundance with your family and flourish with opportunity, both secular and sacred. I hope that you'll have a safe December and the residual remaining part of 2025. I hope that you bring value and benefit to the greater contribution of technical scale. I hope that you take Gatherverse's principles with you, and I hope that your Gatherverse was well. I receive your encouragements. I hear your words. Have we barely just begun? I'm thankful to hear from you. I'm thankful to hear from you, to see you, and to many of you, to befriend you. As we conclude, our next summit is January 2026, the Superhero Engine She Summit. We are anticipating many, many voices to align with us. And then we have an incredible AI summit that's coming. And after that, our 5th annual Gatherverse Summit. Then we have our Women's Health Summit. And we have a very important Education Crisis Summit. And then we have a summit on climate, a summit on trust, a summit on AI Evolve and the evolution therein. We have a summit for AI and XR for humanity. You don't want to miss that. That will be special. As all of our summits are special. What makes them special are the hearts and minds that arrive. What makes innovation great is the heart that sits in the center of it. What makes the words on the page so relevant of the author is that she or he gave us their time, their words, and for just a little moment, they gave us their hearts to borrow. This is similar to Gatherverse. For just a little bit of time, you've given us your heart to borrow. And that's made all the difference. I am so thankful to have been afforded the opportunity to journey with you today. our gather was well. And on the next time that we meet, if we are so afforded to have such opportunity to gather again, be well. Farewell. Peace.
Not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. Well, I got one foot on the platform, the other foot on the trail. Going back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain. Well, there is a house in New Orleans they call the Rising Sun, and it's been the ruin of many a poor boy. And God, I know